Namaste. Welcome to the third edition of the Global Festival of Oneness, organized by Advaita Academy. We are today in the weekend special session of Prashnottara Ratnamalike, explained to us by Neema Majmudar. Before we start the session, I'd like to say a prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. As you've been noticing, we've been for the last three sessions discussing with Neema Majmudar the Prashnottara Ratnamalike. For those of you who've joined just today, I'd like to introduce the speaker. Neema ji has studied Indian philosophy with Swami Dayananda Saraswati, and since 1999, Neema ji has been giving conferences, conducting seminars and retreats across the world in the domain of personal development and philosophy. Along with her husband Surya Tahora, they have created a bilingual website in French and English, which is called wisdomofrishis.com, which explains in a modern style the vision of the traditional teaching of Advaita Vedanta. Welcome, Neema ji.
Thank you, Anuradha ji. Thank you very much. So I start with a prayer too. Good morning, everyone. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru-Parampara. So we are doing Prashnottara Ratnamalika, and we are now on verse number 20. Okay. So as we have seen, there are short questions and answers, and they are very profound. So, okay. Kasya vashe praniganaha. In whose control lies the community of creatures? So it is an interesting question. Who can control anything, right? So in fact, we really don't have that much control over many things. But what is interesting is who attracts people? And the answer is Satya Priya Bhashinaha Viditasya. So one who speaks the truth and speaks the truth kindly and is humble. So that, people naturally get attracted to him. And that person's voice counts, right? So one thing is wonderful. Our Shastras talk about three things: Satyam Vada, Priyam Vada, and Hitam Vada. So you speak the truth, but say it in a non-violent way. And also, before actually speaking, just ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want from this conversation? And it has to be for good, right? Even if you have to say something which is sometimes a little difficult, you have to say that, it is, I'm saying it because it is for the good of the other person. So let me give you an example. So one day, one mother comes and she says that, my daughter is very rude to me, and she says really very hurtful things, and I kind of let go. But it has come to a point that I'm saturated and I'm not able to cope with so much rudeness. So I said, did you talk to her about it? And she says, you know what, it's very hard because she has her own little health issues and all. So I don't want to give her a hard time, so I'm just coping with it myself. But it is really making me suffer a lot. So I told her that, what do you think that after, being rude to you, you think the daughter is happy? Even she must be suffering, right? I mean, sometimes what happens is helplessly we behave in a way which is not appropriate, but later on we regret. We may not express it, but we may regret. So I told her, you speak to her, but before you speak to her, think about why do you want to speak to her. You don't want to speak to her to tell her off. You don't want to speak to her to hurt her. But please remind yourself that, actually pointing it out to her may be good for her also, right? Because every action that we perform has consequences. So if she's rude, she thinks that she can get away with it, but you may not say anything. But in a larger, the law of Ishvara, of cause and effect, right? She's liable for the choices that she makes. So please think in your mind that you're actually helping her to come back on track. And when you think like that, you don't feel as though you are actually hitambada. Hitambada means you're saying it for her good. You're not actually saying it to reprimand her. And that kind of an attitude is very good. So that enables you to handle difficult situations, but with compassion, with care, and not with anger and resentment. So this is why, and if you do that, then tasya vashe praninganaha. People are attracted to that person, and that person's words actually mean a lot to people. Okay, kaha sthathavyam. Okay, where should one stick? What one should stick to? Yeah, nyaye pathi drashta adrashta labhadaye. Right. So, what do you? How do you want to live your life? What do you want to follow? Right. So it is beautiful. Here he says nyaye pathi. Right. So we need to suppose there is some principle that you want to live by. Then what? Justice, principle of justice. Because if you do what is to be done in a given situation, even though it is a little bit difficult for you, what will happen is here, drashta, adrashta, labhadaye. So what does it mean? So if you do something which is to be done, there are two kinds of rewards. And one is drishta phalam, seen result, and other is adrashta phalam, and that is unseen result. So what does our, one thing which is very beautiful, our Vedic, tradition, we don't preach. We don't say you should do this and you should not do this, because that is like, just being told the rules. Now, ours is a very analytical tradition. Analytical tradition means you're made to think about implications of your actions. So what Vedas point out is anything that you do, now just observe, right? It's not telling you should or should not. Just observe what happens. What are the consequences? The first consequence is your seen result. And what is that? You, as I told you in the previous case, right? Suppose a daughter just lashes out at her mother, then what? She would go back and feel really bad. And this is your seen result. And seen result is the feedback from Ishvara about nature of your actions. So unless you are really damaged, what happens is all of us, if you're moving with the program of Ishvara, every time we have done something which is inappropriate, this is what we call our conscience breaks. And what does that mean? Seen result. Seen result which nobody else can see, but you can see. What that whenever something which is you think is you could have done better, there is this feeling of discomfort. Now, in addition to that feeling of discomfort that we feel, which is our immediate feedback from Ishvara about nature of action, we have adrushta phalam. And what is adrushta phalam? Unseen result. And what is this unseen result? It can accrue to us anytime in the future, but it is unseen by us. And what does it mean? That we don't know when will it accrue, the form in which it will accrue, whether it will be in this lifetime or later. We have no idea. So from our standpoint, it is unseen result. From the standpoint of Ishvara's order, what it is all organized within Ishvara's order, but we don't know. Therefore, it becomes unseen from our standpoint. But it definitely accrues to us. So the unseen result of a a good act will give you some pleasure, some comfort, some conducive situation, and that is called punya. And the unseen result of an inappropriate action will give you some discomfort, which is called papa, right? So now, who is the what should one stick to? One should stick to justice, because it produces both, conflict-free living and also adrishta in form of punya, which will give you comfortable life. Kaha andaha. Who is blind? This is number 21. Yaha akarya rataha. Right? So one who enjoys, who is blind, the one who enjoys wrongdoing. And what does it mean? We have a natural program. And what is this natural program? We have empathy. And what is empathy? That not only you feel your own pain, but you can feel others' pain. And just as naturally you try to release yourself from the pain that you're going through, you will also do the same for others. That is called empathy, right? That your pain is not comfortable and you'll do whatever you can almost spontaneously to release or relieve yourself from it. And you would do the same with others. But here, who is blind? The one who enjoys wrongdoing. That goes against Ishvara's program. So what does it mean? Hurting somebody, right? Instead of actually helping others, if hurting somebody, you take to, and if that starts giving you pleasure, oh my God, you're completely blind, right? Not only that conscience which hurts you, and say, oh my God, I have done something wrong. There comes a point when you keep doing the wrong thing and your mind wants to justify, because the mind doesn't want to take responsibility for your actions. So you keep justifying, oh, this is fine, that person deserves it. Then over a period of time, what happens is you have worked yourself in a way that you're completely against the natural program. And what, instead of wrongdoing, right, giving you a little feeling of guilt or discomfort, you begin to enjoy it. And if you begin to enjoy it, then what has happened is you have shut yourself to this Ishvara's program, which keeps you on track. And this is why you're blind. Kaha badhiraha. Who is deaf? Yaha hitani darshanoti. Right? So what one who does not listen to a good advice, that person is deaf. So you have ears and somebody is telling you something which is good for you, and at the same time, what you have is you're so much into your own world that you don't listen to anybody. And in Mahabharata, we see this, that Duryodhana was told by so many people, right? Again and again, that Duryodhana, what you're doing is inappropriate. At least sometimes Dhritarashtra used to say, but then he used to come under his pressure and then he would retreat. Multiple times, even Bhishma told him, and also Vidur told him, but he was just not somebody who would listen to somebody who would give the right perspective. And this is something that we also see, that as you become more and more powerful, then what happens is you want to surround yourself by people who will only praise you and people who will only kind of flatter you, but not people who will tell you the truth, which is probably the right thing to do. And when that happens, then what happens? Actually, in the long run, our decline starts. So that means listening with an open mind to an advice of a wise person, even if it is counter to what you believe, that's good, because it will only expand you and it will make you grow in the process. And if you don't do that, then you're deaf. Yeah. Kaha mukaha. Who is dumb? Yeah. Yaha kale priyani vaktum na janati. Right? The one who does not know how to speak the kind words at the right moment. And this is something which is very, very important, So all of us who have studied, for example, this amazing philosophy, right? We also have to learn to speak the right thing at the right time, right? So I'll just tell you a story that when I was in Bangkok, right, there was this family, and I didn't really know them very well, but the father had gone to Europe for a business trip, and he had a massive heart attack and he passed away. So now the kids who were like 18, 19, they were devastated. They were so upset, and they were inconsolable because there was so much grief. And during that time, they called some priest, and the priest is telling them, please don't cry, because what your Atma, first of all, is what doesn't die. It's only the body which goes. And while the jiva is traveling, right, to another yoni, and if your father sees you crying, he will be very much pained. And therefore, you should not cry. Now, what happens when you give, even though it may be truth, right? I mean, it's true that Atma never dies. That's a fact. And it also is true that there is a transition. And while the transition is taking place, maybe for some time, the jiva knows what is going on, right, on this earth with reference to their loved ones. But at the same time, right, for us to tell anybody who is in so much grief and to say you should not grieve and and not support that person, then that becomes those kids were so angry with this priest, and even though he was telling something which was not totally wrong, but it was not the right time. It's not the right time because this was the time they had to first express their grief. They had to express their grief. And over a period of time, you can lift them up, right? So then our neighbors called and they said, can you come and speak to those kids? And, we said that, yeah, I mean, this is very difficult. And I totally understand that you feel sad because there is a loss of your father. So that was appropriate at that point in time. Why? Because I was not, somebody had not come to my class to know about the nature of Atma. Somebody was just grieving. Somebody was under a shock. And what was needed at that given point in time? My support. And to be with that person, to help that person go through that grief, but at the same time, give some perspective, but little later, and not to create guilt for feeling, sad because something such a big event has happened. So this is why the dumb person is the one who does not know how to speak and what to speak at what given point in time, right? And this is what also Swamiji used to always say: don't start advising people, right? Don't assume that they don't know anything and you're superior to them and you will fix them up. That is unnecessary. If they ask for help, right, participate in their life, support them. If they need help and if they ask for help, state what you have to say, and at the same time, give them the freedom to think about it and move forward and not take over their life and not start to control them. So this is not saying the right thing at the right time, even for teachers of Vedanta, right? What is appropriate, that is very, very important, and that we all have to learn. Okay. Now, Kim Dana, what is charity? Anakanksha, right? So what is charity? Here he says that which is given, keeping the recipient in mind. So in Bhagavad Gita, they talk about 3 different kinds of charities. Dana. One is sattvic, the other is rajasic, and the other is tamasic. What is sattvic dhanam? That you give, but what is the focus? The focus is the recipient, what that person needs, and doing what you can do to help that person. And then there is no other strings attached. There is no other agenda. Then that becomes a sattvic dhanam. Now, while giving, suppose in your mind, right, you want recognition for it. You want to be recognized as a kind person, a generous person, a philanthropist. Then what happens is this becomes rajasic dhanam. I don't think it's bad. I mean, at least the person is giving, but the focus is not always the best, like the recipient, but it is oneself. Then there is tamasic dhanam. And what is tamasic danam? Where you, under the pretext of giving, you actually are exploiting the other person. So what you do them a favor, and then there is some hidden agenda, and then you charge a huge interest, or you make that person feel obliged, or you take advantage of that situation and get back to that person in some other way, then that becomes tamasic danam. So here what he says, a real giving is that which is sattvic, where you are only committed to the cause, and you are thinking that, hey, towards this cause which is important for me, let me contribute in the best way that I can. So that is real sattvic danam. Kim mitra, who is a friend? Yaha nivarayati papat, right? The one who saves you. Who is a friend is the one who saves you from sin. The papa. Papa means inappropriate action, the result that you get from inappropriate action. So generally what happens is, we think the friend is somebody who's always supporting us, always agreeing with us, always going along with what we are saying. But here is exactly the opposite, right? So suppose if you have lost perspective, a real friend is the one who will tell you, right? Who will tell you that, hey, this is not to be done, because that will, avoid misery or suffering for you in the long run. So this is where I have seen that, very often what happens is, suppose you go to a friend, right? And you say that, oh, I don't get along with X person, right? Suppose you say mother-in-law or whoever, right? Now, what will this friend say? That friend will not only make you think about why don't you get along, what is your responsibility, do you have some prejudices, just challenge you a little bit to see the situation a little bit differently than only from your interpretation. That person will say, oh yeah, that's true, I mean, I've seen how horrible she is. Then you tell 5 more stories about some 5 other people who are also struggling. So what happens is, you reinforce that feeling and you magnify it. And the person's suffering actually goes higher. It becomes higher. And you actually, instead of giving the right perspective, balancing, which is in Shastra, it is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. You already have a given understanding. So who is a real friend? Who makes you understand that, yeah, this is what you think, but the real situation has many other nuances. It has many other sides, and have a little bit more balanced view of the situation than just going along with your thing, and which may be at times biased or may at times be prejudiced. So this is who is your real friend, who makes you avoid that path. Okay. Kaha alankaraha. What is decoration, right? Wow. What is your decoration? Sheelam, your character, right? So what do we think? Our decoration is the makeup we wear, the jewelry we wear, the bags we carry, the clothes we wear. So here, what is your alankara? Your alankara is your character. And that is something which is amazing. And what is this character, right? So this character is where does it come from? So this is where we say, character, which is your alankara, is certain integrity. Integrity means you are not just this, a person who only wants to extract from a situation what works for you, what you think is desirable for you, and not give your best. So when you have a certain integrity, your behaviors are not going to be only from the standpoint of your gains, but your responsibility in that situation and what is to be done by you. And hard work, right? Hard work means nothing is accomplished in this world, including your spirituality, right? Nothing is accomplished without spending time. And, any learning, right? Suppose I say biology or physics or mathematics, right? You have to dedicate many hours in order to understand the intricacies of these subject matters if you really want to know them in depth. Unfortunately, for spirituality, we assume that everything will just automatically happen, right? You just have to sit and everything will happen. or you just have to surrender and everything will happen. But even that requires, if you have to work on yourself, you have to actually acknowledge your own limitations, and you have to change. And you also have to give up your own notions about who you are. You have to give up your notions about what Ishvara is. Then it requires certain hard work, not only physical hard work, but even mental hard work, right? Giving up one's notions is very difficult. And this is why, and certain sincerity is required, and honesty, right? Honesty, one thing that Swamiji used to say, if you're honest and if you're sincere and if you're authentic, what happens is the Shastra can really help you very fast to evolve as a human being. But suppose you are taken to, you want to use this teaching to camouflage all the things that you have, right? Your limitations, you want to camouflage and you want to superimpose, I'm Brahman, I'm the whole. Then what will happen is, unless you have taken care of this relative individual and, transform that relative individual by seeing the presence of Ishvara and becoming that person who is in alignment to this order, what will happen is these big ideas of I am Brahman, they cannot stay with a mind, right, which is still suffering from a lot of angularities. So this is why what is important is first to build a character where you work on your integrity, your hard work, your sincerity, your honesty, and that becomes your decoration, right? You go to Ishvara with this, you're well adorned, and Ishvara blesses you with this, what? Mahavakya, Tattvamasi, right? So you and me are ultimately one. So that is a real decoration. Okay. Kim Vacham Mandanam. What is the embellishment for speech? Satya, right? So there is a very interesting nuance that is given in our Shastra. They use two words. One is called Satyam, and the other is Ritam. So what is the difference between Satyam and Ritam? Satyam is, suppose you think one thing and you are saying what you are thinking, then that is Satyam, right? It's not like you're thinking one thing and you're saying something else. So there is alignment between what you think and what you say. So that is Satyam. What is Ritam? Ritam is to make sure, it's going one step higher. And what is that? To make sure that what you think is right. So what sometimes we have certain opinions about, whatever, the country, the people, the politics or whatever. And we have very strong opinion and we say that, but what we don't take enough care to investigate whether they are, balanced opinion, or we are getting carried away with looking at one given situation in one way. So this is why Rutam Bada means going beyond what you believe and ascertaining that what you think is right and say that, right? So that way you will do a lot of good to people, right? So, okay, now. Okay, the next one, Vidyuta Vilasita Chapalam Kim, right? What is momentary like lightning? So, Durjana Sangatihi Yuvatascha, right? So, what is momentary like lightning? Lightning just comes and goes, right? So, bad company and Durjana Sangati and Yuvatascha, youthfulness, right? So what it means is there is so much, in today's day and age, when people do not have the goal, according to the Vedas, our goal in life is what? Moksha. And what is moksha? Moksha, freedom. Moksha means freedom. And freedom from what? The freedom from what? Inadequacies, lacks, smallness, incompleteness, mortality. This is what we are actually seeking. No matter what you are doing, this is your actual goal. And the only problem is you're looking at a different place to fulfill this need of yours. And where is the real freedom? The real freedom is in what the Swamiji used to say, that where the problem is, that's exactly where the solution is. So what does it mean? If the problem is centered on I am limited, I am incomplete, I lack, I am mortal, then what happens? The solution also has to be what? Centered on I am. So what? And you can't have something else solving that problem. And this is something that we need to understand. If you do not understand, then what happens is your individuality becomes really important for you. And there, what you cannot stand, right? This already you have an opinion of yourself, which is I'm no good and I'm inadequate and I'm small and I'm insignificant. And then what? The only one thing that you want to hold on to is what? Your youthfulness. Your youthfulness means you can't stand gray hair. You can't stand wrinkles. You can't stand, so many things. Eyesight deteriorates. So what happens is your whole life goes into what? Catering to the needs of your body. And you want to look young. And in the meantime, you can do surgeries and you can do all kinds of different interventions to keep looking young, because you cannot stand what we call aging. Why? Because now your eye sense is completely in the body. So you are as good as the body. And then what will happen is, how, according to Ishvara's design, Yauvanam is like lightning. It will move very fast. Right? Nowadays, when people say that even at 30s, people start dyeing their hair. So imagine for like how long they have to keep dyeing their hair, because they don't start at 40 or 50. They start at 30 or sometimes even younger. So this chase for looking young, right? And because in that young, right, looking young is your whole self-image and your whole sense of well-being. And what is the reality? It will move like lightning. And youth will go, and you want to still hold on to it. And that is something which is, there is a mismatch between something which is moving so fast, we are trying to hold on to, and how frustrating it can be. The other thing is what, again, the Durjana Sangati. So what moves very fast is what, once you take to people who are, not very good for your own well-being. They take to whatever, addictions or insulting or, whatever, just indulging without thinking about it. It moves very fast. It moves very fast because mind is very influential, and it gets very influenced by whatever the environment is, especially, and we are all very susceptible to what happens, and we want to belong. We all have our pressures. We want to belong. We want to be recognized. We want to be accepted. So once you get into a bad company, you get sucked in, and very quickly what happens is you start deteriorating without you even recognizing it. So that's why also it moves very fast. Durjana Sangati. And then what? Yavana. This is where, see how Adi Shankaracharya ji, he understands human mind. He understands, right? He is not always talking with reference to the final reality. He switches back and forth. Back and forth is very important. The relative individual has to be a mature individual that you cannot bypass, right? If you want to know the final truth. So this is Bhashyakara. Bhashyakara moves back and forth to show that this relative individuality has to be nourished before you get to the final truth. Okay. Now, Kula Shila Nish Prakampaha Ke Kali Kale Api. Okay. Who are they unshaken from their noble lineage and good conduct, even in the Kali Yuga? So, what is the answer? Sajjana Eva, only good people. So, what does it mean? People who have clarity, people who have purpose, people who have meaning, people who have proper perspective. So, even so, please don't justify, right? We say, many people say, oh, in Kali Yuga, living, with values is not possible. And why do we say that? Because we say that, yeah, in general, people are constantly cutting corners and they are not doing the right thing. So if you want to do the right thing, it becomes a little more difficult. It becomes, because when everybody is doing the right thing, it's much easier. But when others are not following and you want to follow, there is a struggle at times. What is important is, no matter if your life depends upon what others are doing, then what has happened is you give away the power of your decision making in the hands of others. So that means what will decide what you are going to do and what others are doing. So how down are you going to go? Others are murderers, others are cheaters, others are robbers, others are whatever, right? So are you, just because others are like that, you're going to do that, right? Others can never be the point of reference when we make decisions. The decisions have to be made by us, and you have to make your decisions based on your values. And when you make your values, then what the focus is you. What is important for me? What will not create conflict for me? What will not lead to punya, suffering in the future? That has to be the criteria for decision making, and not what others are doing. So this is why, who are these Sajjana, that even who are unshaken from noble acts in Kali Yuga, they are, because they work and they make decisions based on their values and not based on environment or wanting to fit in or please people, right? So 24, Chinta Manim Iva Durlabham Ihakim, right? So what is rare in this world, like Chintamani? And what is Chintamani? Wish fulfilling stone. Okay. So and then Kathayami Tat Chatur Bhadram. I will tell, that is the fourfold good. Okay. So what are the four things? Kim tat vadanti bhuyaha vidutaha tamasaha visheshena. Okay. So what do those who have destroyed dark ignorance especially urge repeatedly, right? So there is four things that we all have to follow. And what is that? Dana, giving with sweet words. So that is fourfold good. What is fourfold good? Giving with sweet words. Generally, what happens is, suppose you give, but if you make that person feel obliged, or you feel you make that person feel you're superior because you're giving, and the other person feels that, oh my God, I have taken a favor, and there is some discomfort in that person, then even if you have given, it is not totally noble. So when you give, don't make that other person feel small. And this is what we see, that how Lord Krishna was behaving, right? With Sudama, he was giving, but not making Sudama feel small at all. So that is something that we have to learn. Now, what is the second thing that we have to cultivate? Knowledge without pride, right? So there is this whole, this small human being is, always finds a way to feel good about oneself and wants to, this is what we call this individual who's struggling individual. And what happens? You become a little bit a scholar, right? You become scholarly. You become somebody who is an expert in a given subject matter, or who's recognized as an authority. Then what happens is pride sets in. So there is one kind of pride with, like wealth you have and you become proud. The other pride is not so difficult, it's not so easy to detect, but it is what intellectual pride. Intellectual pride means you feel that you are superior because you command certain knowledge and you make others feel small. And that one has to keep away from. What Vidya, in fact, the more you know, there are two things, right? If it is Apara Vidya, then more you know, then if you really are scholar, the more you know how much you don't know. That very given thing that you know, right? Even for that thing, there are so many things that you don't know. And suppose it is to do with Paravidya, and you have this knowledge, the knowledge of Brahman, then what has happened is the somebody else, right? This conclusion that there is somebody else itself has gone away. Where are you proud? Who are you proud, right? And from where you started is something which is avidya, and you needed guru, you needed scriptures to lift you up. What belongs to you? There is no need for any pride, right? So this is something that we have to stay away from, right? Then the third one is beautiful. What? Courage which accommodates people. And what does it mean? That you need to be courageous. Courageous means not operate from fear, right? But at the same time, what you have to accommodate different people. So what does it mean? The world consists of so many different kinds of people, and you can't change everybody. You can't change everybody, and you also cannot go along with everybody. That also is true. So how to negotiate this fact that you allow people to be who they are without getting, upset or angry or resentful yourself, when what you're doing is you're contaminating yourself, right? And contaminating your own buddhi. So you leave them where they are. And at the same time, what and accommodate. That is what we call accommodation, right? You don't internalize, their behavior, and you yourself, become somebody who's unhappy. So that is called accommodation. But at the same time, what you're courageous. Courageous means not get totally sucked into that behavior, and you don't become a victim of their wrongdoing. And that is something that we all have to learn, right? And the fourth is, which is very important, which is a fourfold good, is what? Wealth with magnanimity. So what does it mean? Wealth, Lakshmi is a blessing. We are not saying we don't give it the name material. There is no material in Vedic vision, because all that is here is Ishvara. If there is only one, and that one is manifested, Brahman, and Brahman with reference to this whole manifest Jagat is Ishvara, then what is material, what is spiritual? All that is here is Ishvara. So Swamiji used to say that we don't say that there are many gods. We don't even say there is one God. We say that there is only God. There is nothing else. Everything else is just a manifestation of this Ishvara. Namarupatmaka Jagat. And this is why when you have received blessings in form of wealth, then what do you need to do? Instead of shunning it, what? You have to become generous. Why? Because this wealth is entrusted to you because of some punya. And now, what is your responsibility? To distribute it to people who are in need. And this is what, then you create further punyas. You help others and you create further punyas. And this is how we all live. Instead of shunning life, what we do need to do is see everything as Ishvara's blessing, right? See it as Ishvara's blessing, be thankful, and do our part in return. And if you do like that, then what happens? There is a beautiful word in Bhagavad Gita. What is it? Parasparam bhavayantaha. I need your participation. You need my participation. If everybody participates with certain generosity, with certain magnanimity, then what will happen is we will create a beautiful society. Otherwise, we create a lot of distortions in the society. So these are 4 things to be cultivated, right? Giving with sweet words, knowledge without pride, courage which accommodates people, and wealth with magnanimity. Kim Shaucha. What is to be grieved over? Karpanya. Wow, what is amazing? Miserliness. So who is a miser? So if you don't have anything and you don't give, it's okay, it's rational, right? Because you are not capable. But if you have a lot and if you don't give, then you become a miser. And that is what that Adi Shankaracharya ji says, that is to be grieved over. Why? Because of 2 reasons, right? That you have so much, right? And you are not able to give benefit to others of your riches. You are only so self-absorbed. You want to all keep it to yourself. So that's a problem. Now, second thing is that we have wealth because of some punya. Now we have to, but they say Lakshmi is chanchal. Any wealth, whether it is knowledge or it is physical wealth or it is wealth in form of your privileges, certain fame that you enjoy, whatever it is, right? A certain position that you enjoy, whatever it is, we have to distribute, and we have to distribute the benefits of those positions. If we do not distribute, then what happens? Others don't benefit from what your privilege is, and then what happens? Your punya, which gave you those privileges, they are going to decline. They are definitely going to decline because they are expended, and you need new punya to keep you where you are. So what you're also causing by not giving others, you're causing your own decline. Because if you want to continue to live a comfortable life, because the punyas that you collect, as they produce proper, conducive situations, they get exhausted. You need new punyas. So while you are an individual, if you want to embellish this individuality to the point that it becomes ready for knowledge, then what happens is this is a preparation. What is a preparation? Give up this miserliness, give up this hoarding, give up this feeling that, oh, this only belongs to me and I cannot share it with others, because it is detrimental to welfare of others and also to your own welfare. Sati vibhave kim prashastam. What is praiseworthy when there is affluence? Yeah. Audarya. So what? Generosity. Generosity, exactly. Even Adi Shankaracharya does not shun wealth and affluence. He says affluence has to come with generosity. Then it is complete. Then it becomes Ishvara's blessing. Right? So I just want to say that whether it is wealth or it is anything, right? I just want to tell you one story that, I had a little curious mind. So I used to ask Swamiji many questions, and one day he told me that, you are really smart. And I was like, oh, no, Swamiji, where am I smart? And then he told me, but why are you denying it? It's a blessing from Ishvara. So then I said, but Swamiji, if I start telling myself that I'm smart, will I not become arrogant? Will I not become proud? Will I not, lose that perspective? He said, no, you will not lose perspective if you acknowledge that, yes, this is a vibhuti that you are given because of blessings of Ishvara. So what happens is we acknowledge whatever is given to us, right? And therefore, then we have gratitude instead of denial. And from that gratitude, right, we understand that there is no ownership. There is no ownership, and therefore we don't become conceited. So whether it is wealth or it is vidya or it is any blessing, any power that you're given, instead of denying it, what we have to see it as the grace coming, and then we have to do the right thing. Make sure that all these blessings that we have received, we give back to the society in form of some contribution on our part, and also recognize that it comes from Ishvara and it is nothing belongs to us. Like in Keda Upanishad, there is a lovely story about Agni and Vayu and Indra, right? That these devas won against Asuras. And the devas thought that what Asmakam eva vijayaha, this victory belongs to us. And then there was this Yaksha who came and taught, this, hey, Agni, what can you do? And Agni says, oh, I can burn everything. And he gives him that what little blade of grass and said, burn this. And Agni is not able to do it, right? Then Vayu comes and Vayu is asked, right? Hey, Vayu says, I can just move everywhere and I can uproot things and all. Then he says, okay, this same blade of grass, you lift, you uproot, and Vayu is not able to do it. So what does it show? Anything that we are given is a blessing. If we forget that it's a blessing, and if we start having ownership, then it's a problem. But if we acknowledge that it's a blessing, then there is absolutely nothing wrong, because then you begin to actually see the presence of Ishvara everywhere, which is the truth. So that is our growth, right? So not to deny our accomplishments, but to see that ultimately it is the blessings that are coming, and then we give back, to the society. Okay, kaha pujyaha vidbihi, who is to be revered by the learned, vidbihi. Okay, swabhavataha sarvada vinitaha yaha, right? So who, not just anybody, but the learned people, who do they revere? So who do they revere? People who have yaha, the person who have humility, vinitaha, and then what? Now, where does this humility come from? Who is swabhavataha? What? Somebody who is naturally humble, naturally somebody who has humility. So who the learned will revere that person. Now, where does, people can keep telling us, right, that be humble, have humility. But when will it be swabhavataha? What is swabhavataha? Naturally humble. Not a show humble, right? Oh, I'm so humble. That again becomes a big thing, right? So you don't have to feel like that you will only become naturally humble when you know that what you actually don't own anything, right? So when you come to this earth, the land is given to you, right? Parents are given to you. The home where you were nourished was given to you. The teachers were given to you, right? All these circumstances were given to you. So many people participated in your being who you are, right? And even now, right, after accomplishing, right, think about one meal of yours. How many people work to make it happen? So, and what at every point in life, what you need participation of many others to accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. And this is why the minute you recognize that, then what? Arrogance will not come. You will become naturally humble. And what? Who organizes all these factors and factors and factors coming together to support your life? There is not only people, but there is Ishvara. Ishvara's presence as the order. And then what? You also not only recognize people, but you begin to have connection with Ishvara, the giver, right? That's when you become naturally, somebody who has a certain humility. So this is what, if you have that, then what? Learned people will revere you. Kaha kula kamala dineshaha. Okay. Now, if the sun makes what lotus bloom, then who makes the family bloom? Right? So, what does it mean that the sun influences the lotus and it makes lotus, it participates in lotus blooming? So what, who makes the family, right, bloom? So here, what, sati guna vibhave api yaha namraha, right? So what, who will let the whole family blossom? Who, will make the family beautiful? This is what we call good samskaras. Samskaras means if there are people in that family who have great qualities, right? Guna vibhave api yaha namraha. People who have good qualities and they are still unconceited, then what will happen is they will become role models like the sun, right? For the whole family, and what they will pass on these values for generations, pass on these values of high conduct, right? And at the same time, humility. So this is what in Kathopanishad, there is a lovely story. And what is that story? Nachiketa, right, goes to his father. And while the father performed a yajna and he was distributing, he was giving dana. And he was giving old cows and things which were, not very useful. So he goes and asks his father 2 or 3 times that, Father, who are you going to give me to? Because what is he implying? He's implying that instead of giving away all these useless things which are going to be of no use to the recipient, you can give me and I can at least be of some help to those people. So that was his intention. But father got a little irritated by this, and he says, I will give you to Lord Yama. And then the Nachiketa prepares to go to Lord Yama. And then the father says, oh my God, I was impulsive because I was trying to do something and you kept irritating me. So I just kind of said that, no, I'll send you to Yama, but you don't have to take it literally. Please don't go there. And what does Nachiketa remind his father? Nachiketa tells his father that we don't come from a family where people give loose words. People, when they say, they actually mean what they say, and what they follow up and they do what they say. Not only what they mean what they say, but they do what they say. Now, if you are giving a word and you are asking me to go to Lord Yama, and then you change your mind and say, now forget it, let's forget about it, and let's not even think about it, then he says, what will happen to this whole tradition that we are carrying of people who are giving words which are, which have some weight and not just loosely saying things? The whole tradition over a period of time, what will deteriorate? And therefore, Father, I have to follow what you say, and therefore he chooses to go to Lord Yama. And what does it mean? The tradition that is created by people who don't give loose words. They say what they mean and they follow up and they do what they say. And we can't, if there is one deviation and we break the chain, then what the whole, samskara that we have received for generations, it will all go waste and it will all deteriorate over a period of time. So I can't do that, Father. So this is why people of good conduct, they have become role models and they have passed on certain noble traditions for generations. And they are the ones who are what they are like how the sun nourishes lotus. Those people nourish the whole family. Kasya vashe jagat etat, right? So in whose control is this world? So in reality, in nobody's control. It's only Ishvara's, and even Ishvara as a person, there is no control. There is an order. And the order is impartial order and unbiased order, right? It's not like Ishvara says, I'm going to control you. If you do this, I'll do you some favors. And if you don't do this, I'll punish you. There is no such Ishvara in Vedic tradition, but Ishvara is the infallible order. Infallible order means things cannot change for you personally, right? Cause and effect relationship is unbiased. It is impersonal, and it is, not something that can change to do you favors. But in this case, who is the one who is blessed so that, that person becomes influential in this Jagat? So here, beautiful answer is Priya Hita Vachanasya Dharma Niratasya, right? Whose speech is sweet and soothing, and who is wedded to righteousness. So what does it mean? That, look, this is wonderful. The Jagat and its rules are not going to bend for you. They are not going to do you favors. So in whose control is the Jagat? The person who recognizes that the world doesn't move according to my fancies and my wishes, but it moves according to the infallible order of Ishvara. So if I want to live a meaningful life, if I want to live a relatively comfortable life, then I have to understand this order, and I have to align to this order. And as I begin to align to this order, I move with Ishvara. God, it is like a boatman, right, who is crossing the river, but is very aware of what the winds, the flow of water, and so the person is alive to that and is good at navigating one's boat along with those forces, so one doesn't come in a conflict with those forces. So when you begin to ride with righteousness and humility, then what happens? And sweet the speech. What does it mean? There is one thing called Vak Tapas. And what is this Vak Tapas? When you speak, right, be conscious of what you are going to say and what impact it will have on others. Don't just speak from your truth, but have that little consideration of how it will be taken by others. That doesn't mean you have to sacrifice what you have to say, but say it in a proper way. So if you can do that and you're wedded to righteousness, then what happens? Jagat, as though what is in your command. It's actually Jagat is not in your command. You have understood Ishvara's order and you're in alignment with that. And that alignment, what makes your life journey much smoother. So, okay, the next. Vidwan Manohara Ka. What is that which fascinates the hearts of the wise? Sat Kavita Bodha Vanitacha. Right? So, this is something which is beautiful. It says, poetry which contains the truth and spiritual knowledge, that is something which fascinates the hearts of the wise. What does it mean? Poetry which contains truth, right? Poetry can be written in so many different ways. Why? Because poetry is, the poet has a sensitive mind. And that mind is able to see something beneath the surface, right? So we all see things, but when a poet sees the sunrise, right, he is very poetic about it. And that stirs us, that really moves us, because his heart is, sensitive, and he's able to see a certain phenomena, which is beautiful. And especially if that sensitivity is capturing the truth of what is, then what happens? That becomes really something which is fascinating. It is fascinating. And this is why the Indian classical music, right, all the ragas, they themselves, they create sounds which are in harmony with what this sound harmony of Ishvara. This is why they star us. But in addition to that, what they invoke Ishvara. And what does it mean? When you only see the sun, they see what? The grace of Ishvara. And when that happens, then what? It stirs us all. And it moves us because we are, brought in touch with our deeper realities. And this is why it fascinates us, right? Then also that which is, what also fascinates us is the what? Spiritual knowledge. Why does it fascinate us? Because we all live from this vision that I am one individual, every other individual is separate from me, the world out there is separate from me, and if there is Ishvara, then that is also separate from both the world and me. This is what we call Advaita. So we all live in this vision, and there is one knowledge which keeps showing that in spite of all these forms which are different, right? In spite of what there is this oneness. And that oneness is the truth. And that oneness, which is actually, it is contradictory to our perception. Still, it fascinates us because it takes us beneath the surface and makes us see the reality. And any discerning mind will, be fascinated by this. And it brings a lot of joy to us. It brings a lot of joy because in that oneness is the solution to my search for limitlessness. So this is why it fascinates the mind. Kamna sprushati vipattihi. Whom does disaster not overtake? So what vipattihi means? Difficulties, and who is not touched by disasters or any difficulties. So, pravruddha vachana anuvartinam dantam, right? So, who does not get so shaken by adversities? That is the question. The person who has two qualities. And what are the two qualities? Shama and Dhamma. What is Shama and what is Dhamma? Dhamma is your ability. What? Suppose a situation occurs and there is a kind of some challenge, but there is some difficulty. Then the mind, there is a first reaction of the mind, which is what it kind of reaches a panic mode, or it reaches a mode of fear or anger or whatever. So that's the impulsive thinking that every human mind, right? Our human brain has two parts to it. One is what we call amygdala, and the other is prefrontal cortex. This is neurosciences, this study of the brain, right? Science. Now, what is the role of this amygdala? Amygdala is an impulsive brain. So as the situation occurs, it gives us the, its habitual way of reacting to that situation. So that is already activated, for example. It is activated and you're fearful or you're angry. Then what is Dhamma? That has already happened, but that doesn't mean, right? The anger has come, but that doesn't mean you start shouting. That is called Dhamma. So what you can recognize that, yes, this situation makes me sad. Yes, this situation makes me angry. This situation makes me hurt. But that doesn't mean that I have to behave in this way. I can still behave according to what I think is appropriate. That is what we call mastery. That mastery is your ability to have some space between the external stimuli, the impact it had on you, and then choosing your response. And that gap, that inner space is very, very important. And that makes you really a person who is not so affected by the external adversities. The second is Shama. And what is this Shama? Shama is, right, you also, over a period of time, you have to ask yourself, why certain situations create so much fear in me? Why certain situations create anger in me? So what, if you begin to understand your mind a little bit better, you see certain patterns that your mind follows, and then your ability to correct it, what it will make you a person who can face any situation without losing the composure. So that is Shama and Dama. Kasmai Spruhayati Kamala. Whom does the goddess of wealth love? Right? See here again, goddess of wealth, right? We don't call it material or anything. Goddess of wealth is Lakshmi, right? So, Tu Anala Sachitaya Niti Vrittaya. Look at this. It's amazing. Who does a goddess of wealth love? The one who is hardworking, industrious, right? The one who has, without lethargy, who has dedication and is just in conduct, righteousness. So what it means is that maybe what Lakshmi or will goddess of wealth will bless you for a short time, right? Even if you are cutting corners, but in order for it, the goddess Lakshmi to bless you for a long time, what you have to have certain qualities. It doesn't just come to everybody. So what are the qualities? Hard work. Hard work means before anybody became anybody, right? So we only come to know when they already become famous. But before they became famous, how they lived their life, the hours they spent doing what they are doing, that nobody looks into, so that there is certain hard work. And then there is dedication. There is dedication because anything that you are trying to accomplish, there are bound to be challenges. There are bound to be obstacles. And instead of being, scared by, all these apparent, challenges, you're able to face them. And that really requires a certain dedication. And then also all that has to be done, but within righteousness. What is righteousness? The universal value. And what is this? Which is our program. That yes, I want to, just as I don't want to be hurt, I don't want to be cheated, I don't want to be lied to, I can't do anything the same to others because they also don't want the same. So when you follow that dharma, then, and you have hard work and dedication, then what goddess of wealth will bless you, not for a short time, but for a long time. Tyajati cha kam sahasa, right? And whom does the goddess of wealth desert all at once, right? So she will run away. Even if she comes, she will not stay for a long time. Who is this person with whom that wealth will not stay for too long? The one who, look at this, one who criticizes the Brahmana, a guru, and the gods, and also the one who has the laziness. So what if you become over complacent, and if you become somebody who either that, oh, now I have enough and I don't need to work, and you just become indulgent and you don't continue to work hard, then what happens is a goddess will go and what that is called laziness and lethargy. So there is a lovely just a small, how these are all, this is Vedic, or this is Shankaracharya's time, and how all this is so relevant. I want to give you a little example of that. And that all of you know this Kodak, right? So Kodak was very, very, it was every second shop, they had this film rolls where, you develop those films and, you get these photos. Now, there came a technology and that was digital technology. And Kodak, the CEO, was told that, there is this new technology and that may render our whole thing of, developing films and camera all redundant. But, somehow what happens is, you are over complacent. You think that, oh, that may happen in 20 years or 25 years. We are market leaders and all. Nothing can touch us. But what you are at the top. But very soon, what happened is that technology came and you are wiped out. So similarly, right, you reach the top. And if you become lazy, then what happens is that whole success and everything just gets wiped out overnight and you don't even realize how it is. And then those who criticize Brahmana and those who criticize Gurus, right? So this is what I was telling last time, that, one thing is very important in life. That you want to study Shastra, you don't want to study Shastra, is your prerogative. You can decide what is important to you and what you want to accomplish in life and go for it. There is no problem. Because the Vedas themselves give you option. Artha, Dharma, Kama, and Moksha. But people who are pursuing moksha, people who are dharmic, right? People who are in this path, don't criticize them. Don't criticize them. Don't put them down. Don't say that this is all humbug and this is all, that means there is a certain irresponsibility on your part. That is making statements, blanket statements, sweeping statements about things that you don't know much about. And if you are that kind of a person with reference to one thing, right? This is in case of this knowledge, but what you are going to be that person who is going to make sweeping statements, who has no objectivity, who doesn't actually see things with a little depth. And that person can never, over a period of time, there has to be a decline for that person. Lakshmi or no success can stay with that person who doesn't have that basic maturity. It will not stay with you for a long time. Okay. Now, how much time do I have? I still have.
You have another 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, great. Kutra Videyaha Vasaha. Okay. Where is one to live? What is the best place to live? Sajjana Nikate Athava Kashyam. What a beautiful thing. Okay. So where should one choose to live? And not in, Beverly Hills. Not that is not Malabar Hill or Jubilee Hills. So what is the location? The location is what with good people. Where there is satsang, where there are supporting people, that's where one has to choose to live. Or if you can't be around those people, then you go to one place. And what is this? Kashya. Kashi is Banaras. Go there. Why is Kashi? Because there is this whole tradition, right? So there were so many scholars in Kashi, right? There is a whole tradition. That's a religious tradition, scholarly tradition, a spiritual tradition. So, you're surrounded by it. You're surrounded by it, and definitely you will be influenced by that. So, either you seek good people and you stay with them, or go to a place which is a so-called spiritual place, which has seen tradition for generations of scholars and spirituality, and you will definitely be touched by that. Kaha Pariharyaha Deshaha. What place is to be avoided or to be shunned, right? Pashu Nayutaha Lubdha Bhupascha. A place where there is gossip and where people criticize. So what does it mean? Gossip seems like a very common thing that we all do. Gossip is a place, where does it take place? When there is an idle mind, with mind which is not engaged deeply, mind which is not even, curious. It is all that curiosity, but at a very base level, where you only want to know what people are doing and just criticize them or judge them. So that is something which is to be avoided, right? So you don't want to find yourself where there is gossip and where there is just criticism. So criticism, unfortunately, in this modern context, right? Critical thinking is in some ways important because you can't blindly believe everything. But you are always cynical about things. You are dismissive of things. Then that is, that's not a noble mind. We all have to learn to replace that cynicism with trust, and and a certain goodness. That is important. Otherwise, even where there are intellectuals, but if they lack that trust and they lack the beauty that is Ishvara and all that, it becomes all, always looking at problems, always looking at limitations, always criticizing things. And that is a mindset which is not a very healthy That you'll also do with reference to yourself. You will keep criticizing, and that person can never learn. A person who criticizes and is constantly, finding faults can never move ahead in life. Kena ashochaha purushaha. By what means can a person be griefless? Pranata kalatrena dhira vibhavena. Okay, so who is the person who is going to have a good life? That is, griefless means who is going to have a good life. Two things: one who has respectful spouse, and then what? The one who has lasting wealth. So what does it mean? We have seen earlier, for lasting wealth, you have to be hardworking, you have to be industrious, you have to be committed, and you have to be righteous. So that means otherwise Lakshmi will not stay with you. It will go away very quickly, right? So if you have that, and along with it, if you have a partner, right, who is supporting you, who is with you, who is respectful of you, then what will happen is that you will have a relatively easy life. So what? You are giving the best to the world is giving you back all the blessings, and you have a supporting person with you who helps you in that journey. And what this is exactly how a Vedic marriages are seen. What in Vedic marriages, right? Vivaha, what moksha is the end. That is what everybody, human being, has come on this earth for one's own freedom. It has not come for anything else. But what Vivaha is important. Why is Vivaha important? Because in that journey of life, we need some support. And what is your spouse expected to do? Not to control you, but what to help you in that journey. So that means when two people are walking together towards the same goal, each becomes support for the other. And what each one has to learn to respect the other. Nobody is the boss, and nobody is under anybody's control, right? That kind of everybody has an equal position, and everybody, there is a mutual respect and mutual care for each other. And that is what this whole journey is about. And at the time of this ceremony, we are reminded that, right? That we are saying that be my friend and help me to go through my life journey. And we are, and I will respect you and you respect me. So that is Vedika Vivaha. And if you have that, support from anybody, and you are doing the right thing, and you have wealth which is not uncertain, then you will have a relatively blessed life. Okay. Iha bhuvane kaha shochaha. Who is to be grieved over in this world? Sati api vibhave na yaha data. Right? So who needs sympathy? And the person who needs sympathy is that even if sati api vibhave, even though he has wealth, what he's yaha na data, the one who is not able to distribute. And it's same with knowledge, right? Suppose you have a lot of knowledge, but if you are insecure about that knowledge, you consciously and deliberately don't give everything because you want to maintain your superiority. That is miserly act. So there are some gurus who will only give little because they want to keep their supremacy. And that is not really a guru. Guru has to, whether it is dance or it is music or it is this vidya, what a guru has to also give totally 100% of what one has. And also people who have any talent, anything, any glory that you have, it will only shine and multiply if you share it with others. If you keep it, if you're insecure about it, it will go down very quickly. Kim laghutaya moolam. What is the cause of attracting disrespect? Prakruta purusheshu yacha. What? So you seek people, you seek favors from people who have no values. So what does it mean? So you just indiscriminately go and ask people for help. And they are not whether emotional help or financial help, but they are, not evolved human beings. They will take advantage of you. They will manipulate things. And that is something which will, and then what it will get you into trouble, right? By, putting trust in those people who don't deserve your trust. They will put you in trouble. So that is because disrespect. Okay. Is that, can I just do one more?
Yeah, definitely. One more.
Rama Tapi Kahashuraha, who is even braver than Lord Yama. Smara Shara Nihataha Na Yaha Chalati. Right? So what? This is interesting. Who is braver than Rama? That when one is hit by the arrows of Cupid, right? The one doesn't get swayed. One doesn't get. One does not waver. What does it mean? That there is one thing in all of us, which is what this attraction. An attraction, this whole thing that this person is absolutely indispensable for my well-being. I need this person. If you have that kind of an attraction, it becomes an obsession. And when it becomes an obsession, it definitely leads to loss of perspective. So the person who can contain that is more courageous than Lord Rama. So that is how he says it. That is 32. Okay. Anuradha.
Thank you so much, Neema ji. That was once again a wonderful session, and all the listeners are very happy that you've shared this knowledge with them. And the one takeaway which I found very helpful was this paraspara bhava that you shared about, which is understanding the mutual dependency of each other. And is there anything that we can do till we meet next week to cultivate this value, ma'am?
Yeah, exactly. So, this paraspara bhava is a very important thing. And we also, we think one thing is, Anuradha ji, not only to see it with reference to people, right? Last time, I think I did say that, think about how many people contribute to, what you are doing, but to extend it to the whole universe. So what, not only people are contributing, the trees are contributing, the sun is contributing, the waters are contributing, the air is contributing. And that means you are living in a benevolent universe. You're not living in a scary universe, which is, out to get you. You're living in a universe which is pervaded by Ishvara. And that's when gratitude will come. That's when, trust in life will come. And that's where your relationship with Ishvara will become firmer and firmer. That, everything is designed in a way to just bless you. And now, what is my life to actually recognize that and to give back, So that if you can think about it, that how the whole world is designed, not only human beings, but, for our, to cater to every minute need of ours. And that we have to understand. Then your heart will be filled with gratitude and humility.
Thank you so much, Neema ji. That was again a wonderful session. Viewers and listeners, please do tune in next week also. Today evening, again, we have another session, and can I just run that program? Yes. Today we have a session which is on role and function of traditional mathas in contemporary Hindu society. This is very important because, as you know, Shankara established 4 mathas in 4 parts of India, and we are going to examine what role do they play in contemporary society. So thank you once again. See you all today in the evening and next week for Neema ji's sessions. Thank you.